Hello and welcome to Wide Angle. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is now advanced to Washington, D.C. The issues that he in fact touched upon with various leaders in New York at the UNGA will probably be dilated here. And among the issues that we are looking at and tracking is India and the ISIS. There is no connection, but is there one? Because the theme has been raised. To discuss this subject, we have a very distinguished panel today. On my extreme right, Ambassador M.K. Bhadar Kumar, and an expert in international affairs, someone who has actually made that his 24/7 job. On his left, John Cherian, foreign editor of Frontline magazine, the only magazine that in fact dwells on international affairs in any depth. And then on my extreme here is Talmiz Ahmad, Ambassador Talmiz Ahmad, who is now in the Emirates, and he specializes. I mean, there's no one who knows more on energy and West Asia as it is moving today. Let me start with you, Talmiz. India is directly involved, in a manner of speaking, in this ISIS drama on two ways. Countries have been lobbying, join the coalition, and India has two problems. One problem is that we have 50 of our own citizens in ISIS hands in Mosul. How, if you were here and you were asked, look, Netanyahu is going to say this, what should the government of India say? What would be your advice?
India has deep interests and concerns with regard to the security of West Asia. It is our neighborhood. It is a source of petroleum for us. It will be a principal source in the years to come. So it's a long-term relationship. We have a very substantial economic relationship, and above all, we have 7 million people living there who send back to India $35 billion annually. We are not directly connected with this new scourge in our region, the Islamic State, but we are concerned in terms of the security challenges that it poses for the region, and therefore that will certainly have an impact upon us as well. Any radical force, any extremist force that has transnational interests is bound to impact upon us. Now, how would I react to this? I would be very deeply concerned, but there is no question of sending Indian armed forces to the region, either in the shape of air power or in the shape of ground troops. There is enough firepower already available there. Our role has to be diplomatic. What is missing in the region is a platform where the principal nations can get together and have a dialogue. The role of the USA is to be hegemonic and to offer a military intervention, an intervention of death and destruction, rather than anything constructive that I have seen in the last 35 years. I want that platform to be put together, and India can play a role in that.
Ambassador Talmiz Ahmad says that role, and he's almost recommending it, he says role of the United States is hegemonic. Now, could you peel that off a little bit?
I feel a little diffident to say in presence of Talmiz, because he's also a distinguished author. You didn't mention it, of books on the region, and while in the service as colleagues and old friends, I know he goes back a very long time in his specialization in the region. But having said that, let me also introduce a thought here. I think we are at the threshold of something new. You see, the Islamic State is a byproduct of a certain geopolitical matrix which appeared in Syria and so on. It's a byproduct of it. It is really not an organic growth. This has to be understood there. Therefore, the solution comes in terms of cutting that Gordian knot. And I think there are good signs there also, which we should not overlook. If we speak in terms of hegemony, it may be a little bit dogmatic, in the sense that this is also unfolding in the shadow of the US-Iranian engagement. There is obviously a lot of us think that Arab Spring is over. It's far from the case. It is there. It is there in the wings. It is hibernating, and it will come back to the center stage. Now, this is the second aspect of it. The third aspect is this, that at least on the part of the present administration in the US, there is an acute awareness of the limits of American power, and the exercise of that sort of predominance has taken place for the last 50 to 100 years. If you go back to the early part of the last century.
I didn't get your point. What has taken place for the last 50 years?
The decline of US influence. Now, for
years
example,
ago was the first,
no, there are many.
The Second World War.
No. What I'm saying is the kind of Western hegemony which existed in that area, and the kind of political arrangements of having surrogates ruling important places there, and through the surrogates, controlling the region. That style of regional strategy is no longer tenable. It's not a matter of choice alone, because they lack the capacity, genuinely lack the capacity to do it, as is quite evident. I don't need to explain. Now, therefore, and then the other aspect is this, that there is an authenticity about this threat. The United States has all along used this Islamism and the extremism as an alibi, as an instrument of regional policies. In Afghanistan, they did it, definitely. Against the Soviets, they did it. They started in a big way in Afghanistan, the Soviet time. Now, the point is, that is not the case here now. You are here something like the Ottomans knocking at the gates of Vienna. They can hear it in European capitals, that across the Mediterranean, the knock there. So there is an authenticity about this challenge. And I think, given the state of affairs in Europe today, as an old society, wearied of war, and with a load of restructuring that is necessary there, they are genuinely worried about it. And so they would look for a solution which I think will be an out-of-the-box solution in terms of their style of handling these situations up until, say, 5 or 10 years ago. This is the point.
John, one would get the impression that the Americans have been working on this theme for a long while. All right? Just a month ago, in fact, less than a month ago, President Obama gave an interview to Thomas Friedman. It is a very freewheeling, it's a very important interview. In that interview, Friedman asks him, "You have known this since June. Why did you not act then?" He said, "I wanted the ISIS to be a pressure for Nouri al-Maliki." In other words, ISIS was being used as a diplomatic tool to scare Nouri al-Maliki from his perch in Baghdad. Now I'm hearing from our two panelists here that actually this is a mission that he's undertaken. Now I just want to introduce this little element of doubt. How do you respond?
I think President Obama retracted slightly yesterday. He gave an interview to one of the American television stations, which he said that he underestimated the Islamic State. So, I think they were waiting, Washington was waiting for a scenario in which the IS would emerge as a significant threat and then use it as an excuse to intervene militarily in the region. Some people are even saying that this is the beginning of Gulf War III. But before I forget, I think the IS is a threat to Indian security also. I was talking the other day to some of, a senior diplomat, I should not name him, but he is from the region, who said that as per his information, 30 Indians are actually fighting with the IS today. One of them, as you know, has already committed suicide bombing in near Hama.
Yes, yes.
So India, I think, should look at the IS as an emerging threat and should keep its options open, provided there is an invitation from the Syrian government. Damascus has said that if China and Russia join in the fight, it will be acceptable to them. And today the foreign minister of Syria said that America has told them that the fight against the IS will last at least 3 years. So they think that it is not a short-term operation, and if one has to join in this operation of the IS, one should go with one's eyes open and think about the consequences.
Talmiz, if it is a 3-year-long involvement, and in fact they're saying it's an open-ended involvement, from the 3-year limitation that you put is in fact new to me. It's an open-ended.
At least 3 years.
At least 3 years. Now, and 3 years you're going to hover in the air. You're going to wait for the boots to come from where. You are somehow made it your little chant. I shall not come down on earth. I shall bring my drones, I shall bring my planes, I shall shoot from there, but I shall not put my feet on the ground. Now that's your chant, and you abide by that. Meanwhile, you have a coalition of the willing consisting of Saudi Arabia, who have agreed to train, consisting of Jordan, who I don't know what they will do, of Bahrain, of UAE, of Kuwait. This is the coalition of the willing.
And Qatar.
Qatar. And Qatar. All cousins, all GCC cousins. Where is the coalition and why is there no coalition?
See, this is a US-led war. The Arab presence is to give a certain credibility to this operation so that the popular opinion is not that this is one more US assault on Muslim and Arab people. This is the effort. Obviously, the GCC countries have a deep-seated concern with regard to the jihadi elements, because the jihadi elements are extremely hostile to the monarchies. I don't want to get into a debate as to whether this jihad has emerged as a byproduct or is organic. Normally, jihad emerges as a force in states that are failing or whose governments are fragile. Normally, these were sturdy states in West Asia. It is external intervention, robust external intervention in the shape of military assault that destroyed the body politic, destroyed its institutions. This happened in Afghanistan, it happened in Iraq, it has happened in Libya, it has happened in Syria. In Syria, there has been intervention not through the air, but through support to Salafi militia. So the external element is an extremely important element in giving rise to this. How did the mindset of jihad emerge? Let us go back to Afghanistan. Afghanistan, you had a global jihad when Islam was seen as a natural ally of the American and Western people. At that time, for various reasons, United States, Saudi Arabia and Pakistan declared a global jihad, and thousands upon thousands of Muslims got indoctrinated, and several of them participated in jihadi operation, and they were victorious. So please do recall.
So the victory that it is still reverberating, the victory from there. We will take a short break and we shall resume the wide angle. A short break and we'll be back with you.
मैं तो सीधी सीधी बात करने वाला आदमी हूँ कि जिस जगह पे सत्य है वहाँ खुदा है, जिस जगह पे अहिंसा है वहाँ ईश्वर है।
Welcome back to Wide Angle. Among the people that the Prime Minister has already met has been a rather detailed conversation with Prime Minister Netanyahu. I saw something you've written, in fact. What was the substance of that particular meeting? In fact, there are two things we can touch on. His meeting with Netanyahu, and in his speech, he was specific.
Yes.
He mentioned Tunisia
Yes.
as an example of
Yes,
democracy.
yes, yes.
And
Saeed, you're absolutely right. You know, the point is that the way Prime Minister spoke in the General Assembly, he's actually with the forces of history. It's very interesting. I don't think at the level of the Indian leadership, it has been so plainly put forward that India identifies with the aspirations of the people of that region.
Yes.
It's a very big statement he made.
Yes, yes.
Now, why this is interlinked? It has to be, therefore, it's interlinked in the sense that this meeting with Netanyahu, in terms of optics, it's a very interesting story, always anything concerning Israel. So there is always a possibility to exaggerate it, its significance. I studied the readouts, Indian as well as the Israeli readouts, very interesting nuances. Israeli press, Jerusalem Post and so on, and the Prime Minister's office put out a readout also. They said that Iran was the centerpiece. Iran's terrorist threat to the region was the centerpiece. The Indian briefing simply discounted it and said that the Prime Minister listened to a narrative of the Israeli side, of the Middle East situation.
cyber security, I thought.
No, I think the Prime Minister was very focused. And I think it is a continuation of his foreign policy journey so far. He is very focused and very clear-headed about what we are looking for in a relationship. Agriculture, he was very much interested in. Sanitation, waste management on the economic side. Then he came in, actually the most interesting thing he said is, he introduced his Make in India global initiative
In Israel?
Yes, into defense transactions with Israel. Now, I cannot imagine that, I think
Israel are making money hand over fist.
because you see, their sales are not even through tenders,
Talmiz, what do you make of this? This is the first time, you see, not name names in the West Asian theatre. I haven't heard leaders do that. Here, the Indian Prime Minister has given an example, an udaharan of Tunisia. How do you read that?
I think this is an extremely important reference and intervention. This is firstly an assertion of our deep interest in the region. We have a long-standing, abiding interest in the region. Obviously, we've looked at the root causes of the scenario. The scenario is one of turbulence and turmoil, of distress, of various new forces that are at play. You have jihadi elements. You have also have brotherhood elements which are now being ostracized. You also have the sectarian factor which has emerged. All of this emanates from the challenges being faced by the region as a result of the Arab Spring. The Arab Spring is a popular aspiration for freedom, democracy and dignity. It has been our pattern not to intervene in the politics of other countries, domestic politics of other countries, but where there are principles involved, we have spoken out. The Prime Minister has also spoken about extremism and terrorism, and he has called for a united effort by the region as a whole.
By the way, so has Xi Jinping on exactly those things.
Right.
Now, one final question. Because of the Prime Minister being in Washington and the coverage being geared to that, I'm afraid we will be asked to terminate this rather sooner than we would have otherwise. But the one last question is, American suddenly jumping into it like this, does it delay that sense of the unipolar world passing?
Oh, the unipolar moment is long gone. I think it is already a distant memory.
John?
China being the largest economy in the world, so I mean, America is no longer.
So firepower
Numero
alone,
uno.
Talmiz, does not?
Root causes, popular aspirations.
Right, my God, you're not with the popular mainstream, I notice. Not the mainstream says, don't go to the root causes. See, the diagnostics are different. Well, thank you very much, gentlemen, and goodbye.